So good morning. I'm going to do a video about bias within the BBC. It's kind of following on from my last video, but Tuesday and Thursday last week there were two interviews on the BBC News. One was about racism within the NHS, and on Thursday there was one about sexism within the NHS. And the reason I say about bias is because if you see how BBC presenters talk to politicians or anybody else, they ask probing questions, they challenge the data, but when it's about racism or sexism, not about women and girls, as my last video was talking about, they never ask any probing questions. So in this video I'm going to put in a few probing questions, back it up with very brief research I've done to sort of say, why isn't this challenged? Why aren't as biased, impartial presenters, why aren't they challenging this? So let's start playing the video and then I'll interrupt at points and discuss. Okay, let's make a start.
The first ever Women's Health Ambassador for England has been appointed. It's a role aimed at helping to close the gender gap in healthcare.
Dame Leslie Regan will take up the position after more than 4 decades working in the sector. Here's what she's had to say about the appointment.
What I would like to focus on initially is thinking about some of the short-term things that we need to do to improve the day-to-day lives of girls and women. So the problems that women and girls face with problem periods, with accessing contraception, the most cost-effective intervention in healthcare, but very difficult to access for many women, particularly women in hard-to-reach groups or ethnic minorities.
So Dame Leslie has been appointed Ambassador for Women and Girls. Straight away I see this as a sexist thing from the point of view there is no male ambassador for men. No ambassadors for men. It could be a female ambassador who is the ambassador for men, but no ambassador for men. This lady Leslie has 4 years experience in the NHS, so again, someone involved in the NHS for 40 years, so she's part of it. So no sexism there that a female is involved in the NHS. In fact, NHS doctors just under 50% of the workforce. So, you know, 50% of doctors are females. And she goes on about periods and pregnancy. Now, periods, it's well known that period pain is a serious issue for women. There's not much you can do about it other than pain relief that I'm aware of. I'm sure there's been a lot of research into it. But it's not sexist because men don't have and can't have periods. So there is no sexism here, but when we move on to the contraception, both male and females are responsible for contraception. It's not just the woman, We can have, myself, I've had a vasectomy. That was a choice me and my wife made. Before that, my wife, well, she didn't stay on the pill very long, so we tried for children straight away. That was our choice. But if you look on the thumbnail here, sorry, not thumbnail, but a little box here, it shows that contraception is available to all for free. Race does not play a part in that. That's a cultural thing. If there are cultural barriers to females choosing not to have, or even religious, it's probably more religious reasons that people are choosing not to have contraception. That's a choice. That's a religious choice. And again, that is not sexism within the NHS. That's a religion or a cultural reason affects both men and women, not just women. But it's certainly not the fault of the NHS. It's certainly not a sign of sexism. So why the presenters haven't asked the question that, but isn't contraception free to all, as it shows in my little clip here in the little box, why haven't they asked that? Is there a bias? They're just going along with this whole sexism. They're going along with agreeing that there is a gender health gap. You know, it's the whole gender pay gap, gender health gap. It's again, it's there seems to be a agenda, and it doesn't seem like it's not impartial.
Improving the uptake of good early pregnancy care, addressing some of those problems as well.
So addressing the problem with early uptake of pregnancy care. Firstly, it shows that there is early uptake available. Again, that's not sexist. And that, again, it's down to the individual who becomes pregnant or the family. It's not just about the female. Certainly when my wife was pregnant with our 2 children, I showed a huge interest, going to scans, being around, being able to help, researching if there was any problems. It's not sexist. That's a very bizarre one. But anyway, let's move on to the next part of the clip.
And then, as you've all heard, this extraordinary emphasis, which I really do welcome, on the menopause, because I'm a menopausal woman, and I think we need to encourage everyone to realise that menopause is an inevitability in a woman's life course, just as it's inevitable that most of the women that you and I know are going to have 12 periods a year for 40 years of their life. So we've just got to make this something that everybody knows how to help women deal with.
Now, if you look on my screenshot here, you will see it says that a French physician coined the term menopause in 1821. So it's something that people have been aware of for centuries now. In fact, that is, what's that, 201 years now since it's been the term menopause has been coined. As a man, I've been aware of the menopause and how it potentially can affect women in their later lives. Certainly, as a man, I respect a woman who is suffering from the menopause. In fact, actually on Saturday, I was working with a lady within my care job who was saying how she was getting hot flushes, and we just worked together. It's no big problem. Obviously, it affects different people, as does any illness, in different ways. But there has been awareness of the menopause, and again, this is going back to the gender gap. This has been, if you look on here on the screen, in 1930s, people started describing it as a deficiency disease. Consequently, various replacement therapies were advocated. In 1970s, medicalisation of menopause was complete. Menopause symptoms were ascribed to estrogen deficiency. So where is the gender health gap if, you know, for decades this has been aware of and treatments have been designed, you know, decades ago, absolute decades ago. So, and people are aware of it, so why are they saying this is part of a gender health gap when this is, people are already aware of this, and it's become again more prominent more recently because of shortages. Again, where is the bias? Where is the questioning of Dame Leslie around the fact that, you know, this has been well known and there are therapies in place? I don't understand why aren't they questioning this lady that this is already well known. So anyway, let's move on to the next bit.
So how could this help in practice? We're joined now by one of our regular GPs, Dr. Nigat Arif, and women's health campaigner Millie Hill. Very good morning to you both of you.
Good
Millie,
morning.
maybe I can start with you. So the appointment is a job. That's kind of what it is, isn't it? In practice, what do you think could happen as a result of this?
Well, I think it's absolutely brilliant news that this is happening. You know, women's health has been off the agenda for too long.
So straight away here, the lady saying that women's health has been off the agenda for too long. Well, in 1902, I'm just reading here, that the first Midwives Act, midwifery became legally recognised in Britain in 1902. And as we were saying about the menopause, that was 1800s, 1821. So no, it hasn't been off the agenda for too long. It's very much been on the agenda, as everybody's health has. So let's carry on listening and see what she's going to say. But I disagree, and again, the presenters aren't disagreeing, they're just listening and nodding their heads as usual. So let's move on.
And the fact that she's coming in with so many clear sounding plans is absolutely brilliant. I'd like to hear her talk a little bit more about how we can address the kind of long-standing systemic sexism around women's health, the fact that women are so often not listened to and fobbed off.
The systemic sexism word, there we go. We've gone from systemic racism to systemic sexism, and how women's health's been off the agenda and women have not been listened to. Where's the facts? Where's the evidence? And also, men don't get listened to. Men and women both don't get listened to. It's down to personal experience. Also, the fact, as I said, GPs, I think it's 48% are female. So, are women not listening to women? Women can also request to see a female doctor if they so choose. So yeah, it's again, there's no fact base, no backing up with evidence, and no questioning by the presenters. So let's carry on listening.
When they go to their GP with health concerns, for example. But it's really, really brilliant news, and it sounds like she's got some really practical ideas.
Yeah, when I hear you talking there, it's something we hear often when we talk about health in relation to women, about not being listened to, and how in practice the system and the health experts you go to, whether it be doctors or in the nursing profession, still there are issues around being listened to.
So this is what I mean. You have Charlie here agreeing straight away and saying about the system himself. Again, no fact-based evidence. He's just there agreeing. And personally, I've been to the doctor, and sometimes you feel like you're fobbed off. I've had pains sort of in this area before, and they just say it's muscular pain. And my wife at the time said she felt that I'd been fobbed off. That's about opinion of whether you feel you're being listened to. Obviously, it can't be easy being a doctor, whether you're male or female, because things that are wrong with the human body isn't always straightforward and easy to diagnose. So why Charlie just straight away agrees rather than and makes it about sex rather than a general problem that affects both males and females, I don't know. But again, very biased questioning or agreement. And it's not gender specific, so that's poor journalism, I believe.
Yes, and I think if you look at the sort of history of women's health and take the longer view, you can see that there's a really long history of the female body being distrusted. Basically, we've been left out of research, for example, for until very recently. There's been hardly any research on the female body because it was thought that it wasn't safe to research on the female body because we have all our eggs.
A relatively valid point, although technically incorrect. Research, as we were saying, with the menopause, midwifery, breast cancer, breast screening has been going on for decades. Cervical smear tests have been going on for decades. So women have been listened to, treated. But there was I think it was 1970s, it was the thalidomide babies. There was a period where there was some babies born following testing on women, I believe, and subsequently, if you can have a look here, it says about it that they stopped, they made an act to protect women and babies, so they stopped testing for a while. I think it's, saying that it was unsafe and being taken a real health concern is actually a positive, and this lady's dismissing it as being a negative, which I think is really disrespectful to the reason behind stopping in the first place. We don't want to test on anybody if it's going to cause defects in babies. Who would? And being precautionary is exactly the right thing to do. So I think she's wrong to bring that up.
So a lot of research has been done by men, on men, and even on things like male animals and male cells. And so we've got no real deep knowledge of how women's bodies work. And it can be really, you know, a lot of women don't have any understanding of how their own body works. I've found it really difficult to find information when I've been researching my book sometimes, because it just simply isn't there. The studies just haven't been done yet.
There has been research into women's bodies, as I keep discussing. Whether it's been as much as males, maybe not, I don't know, I haven't got that information. Obviously this lady sounds like she's done a lot of research for her book, but if she has, then she would be aware that there has been a lot of research done into female specific problems. And you know, the other side of it is we are all individuals, and you know, whilst there are differences between males and females, there are a lot of similarities. Your circulation system works the same, your lungs work the same, and a lot of these things have to be adjusted to the specific person. To give an example, I can't remember whether it was for my vasectomy or for my hernia operation. When we went in, they back when I used to do a lot of cycling, they were taking my personal statistics, my personal blood pressure, my personal heart rate, and I think my heart rate was in its 40s, and the lady commented, "Oh, that's low," and I said, "Oh, I can get it down lower," and I think I just sort of relaxed and concentrated it down, and my heart rate went down to about 42, which is very low. But again, that's specific to me. My wife had a very similar thing, which again was a bit weird. She'd going back to work, she fell off her bike. Now, whether she'd had a seizure and fell off her bike, again, it's well known that following pregnancy, that ladies are susceptible to seizures. So again, there is that knowledge there. So we don't know whether, because it was the first day back to work following the birth of our daughter for her, so she'd been off for a while. So we don't know whether she fell off because she'd had a seizure, or she fell off, hit her head and had seizures. And usually whether she left in a rush, but she didn't put her helmet on. She always used to wear a helmet. This day she hadn't, and subsequently ended up in hospital. And because she had a low heart rate, because she was, like myself, physically fit, the doctor even suggested that she might need a pacemaker, which I still take the mick out of my wife for that to this day. But again, it's about individuality. A lot of things are about how things affect people as individuals. For example, some people are immune to AIDS. There was also a black female lady who was immune to something, I can't remember what it was, and it was part of a discovery, something to do with her blood. But that's a test on a female, a female from a ethnic minority background. I think it was done in America. I could be wrong. But again, the evidence is there to show that this does happen. So why isn't the BBC refuting some of these claims and questioning it, like they did Dominic Raab on his own lived experience of the price of fuel when he last filled up his unleaded, not on a motorway station, didn't put diesel on his car. So anyway, let's move on a bit.
Nigat, morning to you. There's a list. There could be an endless list, couldn't there? It's not endless, but a long list, certainly, of the differences between men and women and the issues that women have had because there isn't enough research, as Millie was saying, and therefore women's health has suffered.
So Naga straight away agrees with the lady and then talks about the long list of how women have suffered. Again, no evidence-based, no disputing it, no the usual questioning like they might do with anybody. Interestingly, I think a little bit further on, when one of the ladies say that there has been research, actually Naga then starts questioning it. So she actually questions when the positives are given, which is a bit weird. But anyway, let's move on.
I agree, and I agree with a lot of points that Millie has made. I've made them myself here when I said there's institutionalised misogyny.
Oh, so now we have institutionalised misogyny. Evidence, please? Let's move on.
and also, unfortunately, there's been misogyny within the healthcare sector. But I think the appointing Professor Dame Leslie Regan is really fabulous. She comes with 42 years of clinical experience in this area. She's a practicing clinician currently as a professor of obstetrics and gynecology at Imperial College.
42 years experience in gynecology. Isn't that female specific? And is she part of this misogynistic group? I'm getting very confused. You say one thing, but then the evidence you're presenting of a 42 years worth of experience in gynecology. Yeah, should we move on?
She works with well-being of women. She's the chair of the charity. She has a specialist interest in pregnancy loss and period problems. So this is a woman who comes with deep understanding of all the issues when it comes to women's health issues. And she does it with a flair and a sense of humour and being able to be relatable. And I think what we need to do is to, as a community, all together, so those hardly reached communities, those communities that felt marginalised, the trans community, the non-binary community, communities that have felt that research hasn't been done adequately within them.
Now we're back on to marginalised. The NHS is free to all, as we well know. In fact, there's a large proportion, in fact, a disproportionate amount of people from an ethnic minority background actually work in the NHS. So why are we talking about marginalisation when actually the NHS has a higher proportion of black and ethnic minority individuals in the workforce, which is great. It doesn't matter what percentages, if for whatever cultural reasons, whether it's whatever reason the person chooses to go, there shouldn't be this, oh, there's so many people from this ethnic background working here and this. It doesn't matter. Some people, for cultural reasons, for religious reasons, for historical family reasons, people are drawn to different careers, and careers are open to all. So the choices and access argument is really out the window. That's down to choice and culture, not down to racism or sexism. But nice to get that one in there, I guess. But also now we're moving on to trans, non-binary. I'm now confused because from a medical point of view, bodies, apart from a very few people who may have both testicles and breasts or whatever, I haven't done any research on it, but there are a few people. Apart from those individuals, people are either male or female. Now, whether psychologically they choose to identify as somebody else, that is totally different, totally relevant, totally their choice, totally not discriminated against. You turn up with a problem at a doctor's surgery, a health-related one. I'm not on about whether someone's choosing that they would like to have an operation to change sex. That is a totally different discussion, and that's not about sexism. Again, that is a ethical decision, ethical discussion. So there's no research on individuals from trans or bisexual background, because bodies are either male or female, except for in a few exceptional circumstances. So the research is there, you just have to apply it appropriately. So anyway, let's move on.
Is to actually come together, because this is such a historic move. The Women's Health Strategy is such a historic move in England. I can't emphasise that enough. And the fact that we've got an ambassador who is so fabulous, and we need to be able to say, right, let's put our egos aside and let's get behind this, because we can get stuck in bureaucracy going over the same problems. We've done the talk. We know what the issues are. Now let's walk the walk and get strategies in place that work on the ground, so I, as a GP, can implement them.
OK, and that's the point, Nigat. Just briefly, I wonder, when you say a strategy gets put in place, when will women, women's partners, women's families see the difference and see an improvement in the way women are assessed and treated?
Well, we already have. I mean, on Monday, I was here talking about the menopause pledge, the workplace menopause pledge, which...
No, but I mean with this appointment.
We are seeing those changes. So with this appointment, look, we're not going to see straight away lots of different things. Firstly, what we're going to do, Naga, is just to try and get all those partners together to start looking at listening to them, as Millie was saying, and then implementing what we need. Contraception is really quick. So, for example, let's get rid of the red tape. Why does a woman need to have annual checks and come in to see the doctor? Should be able to make the progesterone-only pill over the counter.
So why do women need to go in and have annual checks? Is it to make sure they're healthy, to ensure that the pill is not causing them any problems? It seems I appreciate this lady's a doctor and she knows what she's talking about, but at the same time, those health checks are there to promote women's health. So it's a bit bizarre we're talking about things aren't in place for women, yet now we're talking about taking away health checks, free health checks, and just doling out pills willy-nilly without checking the person's health. Very strange. And also interesting how as soon as the lady said that there were improvements, that Naga, that's the first time I've seen Naga sort of go a bit more disputed. She was talking about, in fairness, about the new position of this Dame Leslie, but at the same time that was a positive. So anyway, let's move on.
Vaginal estrogen, which is HRT, given for vaginal atrophy, that should be made available over the counter. So those things have already happened.
There's a start.
And they are happening, and there should be. There's a start, exactly. But Naga, the most important thing is that what we need to do is that the grassroots level communities that are already doing the work can come together and make this a success. Look, if I can, in 30 seconds, really quickly.
We haven't got time. I'm so sorry. We've got to get a question in for Millie as well.
Millie, just a thought on that theme, and clearly there's a very clear theme developing here. How will you measure whether something is changing, you know, related to this appointment, and something tangible that people will feel the difference?
Well, I think women will tell us if something is changing, and we need to listen to them. That's the key to all of this. Women haven't been listened to, whether it's on a one-to-one basis when they report to their doctor, or whether it's when they, you know, write an article or tweet about something, or however they express themselves. Our voices haven't been heard on health issues, and we will hear from women if things are improving. And if things don't improve, then we need to think harder and do more to help.
Well, we'll follow this with interest, of course. Millie Hill, thank you very much. Aniga, good to talk to you again. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
So I'll make a conclusion about the gender health gap, and I will leave you with some interesting statistics. So here we are saying that the gender health gap affects women more than men, and they've not questioned it, they've not backed up with any statistics. Yeah, let's use some very sobering statistics. So, life expectancy at birth in the UK, and if we go from 2017 to 2019, life expectancy of male is 79.37. Life expectancy of a female is 83.06. So, women are expected to live almost 4 years longer, or over 3 years longer than men. As far as I'm aware, there has historically always been a gap, and I will probably find a table and put it up here like I usually do, so I'll have a look at this table now. And if there is a true gender health gap that's detrimental to female health, why is it that males die younger? Very sobering thought, really, especially if you're a man. I will let play out at the end of this video is the because this is about how the BBC seems to have an agenda, seems to be biased. So I'll let it play out with the interview of Charlie State with Dominic Raab, and see how Charlie questions Dominic when he gives actual figures that he's had by using incorrect figures. So I'll play that out anyway. Enjoy the last bit of the video. Thank you and goodbye.
What's the highest petrol or diesel price you've seen in your travels?
Well, in terms of diesel, I'm not sure, because I've shipped in my diesel for an unleaded, but I think last time I went to the pumps, it was about 165 for a litre of unleaded.
So it's gone up. It has gone up more since that. I mean, I'm not trying to catch you out on this, just trying to get a gist of it, because it's going up.
I filled up in the last week, so I'm just telling you from my just day-to-day experience what you know the last time I
and
was in
you'll know
pubs.
very well, Dominic Rubb, that what's happening in the real world is that people are trying to deal with things, and those pump prices, as you go past them, they go up by the day. So I'm just trying to get a handle on
Charlie, what's the litre of well, you tell me, what's a litre of unleaded today?
Well, I can tell you that, for example, on the highest price I've seen recently, my own experience, is that at a service station on the M6, diesel was selling for 199.9. So that is right back. No, that's diesel.
Yes, but I'm asking you. I said, again, I'm just checking how in touch you are, because last time I filled up, it was 165, 167.
Okay, there's
what's
the
the last
168.
litre unleaded?
Okay, so 168 is the latest unleaded price that I've seen.